Good morning. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Kirk Wilson. I'm the fire chief for the Rockton Fire Protection District. And as you can see behind me, the current situation at the chem tool plant on Prairie Hill Road is still an active situation. We still have fire conditions that are happening at this time, but we do have an incident action plan in place. And before I describe that, I need to say thank you to not only the community, but the state of Illinois as well. We have had so much cooperation from our local, state, and federal authorities throughout this incident, getting resources in to helping us mitigate this unfortunate situation. There's a lot going on right now, and I understand that there are questions on why the fire is still actively burning, but we needed to come up with a game plan that was not only going to help with firefighter safety and the safety of our personnel at the scene, but also to protect our community from any environmental impact that may happen with this whole situation. So right now, what our plan is that we have a industrial firefighting crew from Louisiana that has showed up at the scene, and they have actually dug trenches along the west side of Chem Tool to act as a block of any type of residual material that might go into the Rock River. And the other thing that is underway at this point in time is there are absorbent booms that are being placed in the river just in case there is any product relief. This is strictly for precautionary measures, but we want to make sure all that is in place before we actually start to do the actual firefight. The industrial firefighting crew that's on the scene has handled numerous refinery fires throughout the United States, and they are good at what they do. That's why they are here today. We want to make sure that we have our situation under control, that we don't compromise the village of Rockton or any of our waterways before we actually start to apply foam to this fire. So at that point in time, or at this point in time, if anyone has any questions, I would like them to be brief. I know we want to hear from Dr. Martell and also Aima. So is there any questions?
What kind of fire suppressant system was there in the building for such a situation?
As far as I know, there was a sprinkler system that was installed back in 2008, Andy, but I don't know if it was active.
Why wouldn't it have been active?
That's a good question. And I'm not going to speculate on that right now. And like I said, this is an ongoing investigation.
Do you have any more information on a potential cause?
At this point in time, no, I don't.
Sir, we've seen so many fire companies from so many different villages and towns
Sure.
across the state. What exactly are they doing to support this effort?
So with the state of Illinois, MABUS divisions, basically what we did is we set up an incident action plan that brought in fire departments. Actually, right now we're at 84 fire departments that are involved in this operation. We set up strike teams and task force to not only cover our village in case of other emergency responses that happen, medical calls, things like that, but to rotate personnel and rotate fire apparatus out. And our operational periods are 8 hours. So after 8 hours, we've got 5 fire engines, 5 ladder trucks, 5 fire chiefs, and also 3 ambulances that rotate after 8 hours of time. That way, no one's getting exhausted and things like that. So it's a huge collaborated effort through the state of Illinois and also southern Wisconsin.
Just to clarify, though, if the fire is being fought, if you're not fighting the fire, they're just kind of providing relief for the perimeter of the fire or for the operations of the...
Correct. So throughout the night, we've been watching the perimeter. There have been little spot fires, little field fires, things of that nature, but most of that's under control now. And like I said, the fire's contained into the one area of the building. There's no other exposures that have been involved at this point.
So it still hasn't spread to any of the residential
No.
areas. And what's the name of that industrial fire crew?
U.S. Fire Pumps. They are out of Louisiana.
They're private?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that what we watched
well. We saw dozens of fire crews head out of this location probably 15 minutes
That
ago.
was
Is
the
same
that was
thing?
the relief of the operational period, ended at 8 o'clock. So that's probably who you've seen leaving. So they were going to get their apparatus set up.
We saw some environmental agencies. I don't know if there's any update on. I know they were saying 3-mile radius, possibly wear a mask. You know that concern. Yesterday there was no ground. I had the ground no concern about the air quality. What is the latest on that?
Do we have someone from the EPA? Dr. Martell, do you want to speak on that?
We do not have the data yet from
Okay.
the EPA from this morning.
Okay.
We watched the plume, and again, the mile radius has not changed for the evacuation
Right.
zone, nor has the 3-mile radius to wear a mask changed.
Is it still turn off the AC, keep your windows closed?
Yes. Yeah, we still have that order in effect. So as like Dr. Martell mentioned, the 1 mile radius still remains in effect. So what the game plan is when we have the river secure and we feel confident that we're ready to apply foam, we want to get the smoke plume down. The objective for U.S. fire pumps is to apply a blanket of foam on the burned areas and also to extinguish the still burning 500,000 gallons of oil that's still burning. So once that's done and we can get the smoke plume to dissipate and we are ensure that air quality is good in the area, ground air quality, then we can start looking at bringing our residents back into our community. But right now I can't speculate on that time.
So you said there's still a 500,000.
There was as of last night,
Okay.
and it's burning at a rate of about 1 inch per hour.
Is that what you had anticipated to be burning at? Is this smoke plume about what you thought you'd see this morning?
Yes, Andy, and if we let this continue to burn, they were speculating it could take up to 7 days for it to completely burn off.
Any timeline on when you can get this river protected to when you can start putting the
The river should be protected by 11 o'clock this morning, so we have the EPA deploying the booms at this point. They're doing so as we speak, and once we get the go-ahead that they feel that the river is protected, then we'll start with suppression operations.
You know, this morning in watching the smoke, I saw it turn red at a certain point. It was red and then it was dark gray, turned back to red. What's that red that we were?
Well, what you were seeing is actually after the U.S. Fire pump crew got their equipment set up, they actually ran a test, and they actually put some foam product on the fire for about 30 seconds, and then we stopped that just to make sure that everything was working properly.
That was the red.
So yeah, so you'll see that change in color of smoke. Right now it's burning black because it's free burning. Once we put a water application or foam application on it, you're going to see a color change.
Should people be watching the direction of the wind, like residents, and should they
Oh
also
yeah,
be-
absolutely. We're asking all of our residents to stay vigilant, and again, I can't ask enough. Please be patient. This is a large-scale operation that's going to take some time, so please be patient.
And air conditioners off, windows closed?
Yes, that's what we're saying. So
What
absolutely.
are you saying to evacuees that are at Roscoe Middle School right now? What kind of direction or information are you able to provide them?
Basically, we're telling them the same thing. Just please be patient with the fire crews and the operations that are going on right now.
So
If
at this
the air
time, it's still
quality
too
is-
early to really indicate when they'll be able to return home.
Yeah, we don't want to speculate on when that's going to happen because we want to make sure that things progress in a positive way before we let residents come back.
If the ground air quality is still good, why is the mandatory evacuation still in place?
Just for community safety, Andy. That's basically it. We want to be as safe as possible. We want to protect our residents. We don't want to have something happen that's gonna cause a problem later in the future.
I know what Dr. Martell just said. It takes a little bit to really figure out what the air quality is. Do you have a timeline on when the environmental agencies will have a better idea on what the air is?
I don't have a timeline on that, but I do want you to know that air monitoring devices have been set up throughout our community and also into the Roscoe area where the evacuation site's located. And we are getting good ground quality air right now, so we have no contaminants or anything like that to report on.
With
Besides the
those
damage to the
monitor systems that you
facility,
have,
is
what
there
are
any other
exactly
damage
the-
done to any of the homes or any other property besides just the facility, as you guys know?
Not that I'm aware of. Now, there was debris. There were several explosions throughout yesterday morning and also into the afternoon, but that's basically building debris. And my understanding is that There's no chemicals that's mixed in with that, so that's basically what that was.
For people who have debris in their lawns, what are you recommending as far as cleanup?
We're asking if they could, if they have debris in their lawns, again, this is building debris, if they could rake it up and put it in a trash bag. Again, we don't see any contaminants or any problems with that.
We have
There
people
were
drive up to
reports
us
of-
with black specks of tar on their car.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, obviously it's just whatever's coming. But
So when fire burns, those are hydrocarbons, and when that smoke, when the smoke plume does what it does, as you can see behind me, basically it drops hydrocarbons out of the air, and that's what you'll see. So
One firefighter sustained minor injuries. Can you give an update on their condition?
that individual is doing well. He was actually released from the hospital yesterday afternoon. He went to the to be evaluated for smoke inhalation, and we had one other injury to a firefighter with a leg injury. He was released on scene. So
Any other injuries?
no.
How long do you anticipate the process is for the U.S. pump to foam the fire and get it to quell?
So once the protective booms are in place in the river, then the U.S. fire pumps will start suppression with their heavy foam applicators. As far as a timeline, Andy, I don't have that. We'll just see how operations go.
So there was a massive chemical explosion at the Lubrizol chem tool plant in Rouen, France in September of 2019, and I have a viewer who's asking if this investigation is going to be conducted to align with public health and community support response for like environmental and things like that this time around as they did in 2019.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, we have several agencies here, state, federal, and local agencies. We have the ATF on scene right now. We're working in conjunction with them along with our local law enforcement to do any investigation.
In the fire investigation, is there any indication or any criminal element?
Right now, I can't speculate on that, but I don't have any information.
I know you can't speak on the sprinkler system, but there's a report going around that it was not working because it was being upgraded. Can you speak on that at all?
I don't know. Our preliminary investigation has not happened yet with the employees from Lubrizol, so I'm not sure about that, and I can't answer that question.
Sir, forgive me, just to clarify, 1 mile radius has been evacuated, businesses and residents, correct?
Right.
And then the 3 mile radius is for masks?
Is for masks. So if you're in direct contact with the smoke plume, then yes, exactly. Just like Dr. Martell said, if you're within that 3 mile radius, we recommend you wear a mask.
Maybe an obvious answer, but why such a large effort to try and protect the river?
It's environmental. And if we let product go into the river, I think we would have more of an environmental impact and more of a nightmare than this actual fire. So.
And we talked about keeping that water quality good, and yesterday you had said there's no contamination. Is that still the same today?
Yeah, there is no runoff in the river to speak of at this point, but like I said, we've been closely monitoring that, and you have to understand that this river does feed our town, and also well systems and things of that nature. So it's very important that we keep the water clean.
And that was my next question for the air debris. Obviously, for open wells or for pools, those kinds of things that are open to debris or air quality, what should be done about that, especially for people who might have to do that themselves for water quality?
Again, they're gonna try to have to remove the debris, and if they have to put in pool chemicals or things of that nature to neutralize the water, then they'll have to contact their local pool provider, their water provider.
And what's maybe recommended for animals in that 1 mile radius? People have been evacuated for that 3 mile radius. For people, face masks, but just for pets in that 1 mile radius, what's recommended for that?
As far as the pets go, I think it's basically the same as the human life. Get them out of there, and don't leave your pets at home. Take them with you if you're in that evacuation zone.
So we do have a couple of other people who are going to speak today, including the director of IEMA as well as Dr. Martell from the Health Department. So we just want to, before we take any more time.
Director, would you like to speak?
Sure.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Again, my name is Alicia Tate-Nadeau. I'm the Director of Illinois Emergency Management. What you see behind you today is really the coordinated effort to be able to respond to this incident. As of today, you heard the Chief talk about there are 89 different fire departments, over 19 different fire divisions as part of Illinois' mutual aid that are being brought to bear to this situation. In addition to that, we have also brought some very unique capabilities. Both the federal EPA, the Federal Health and Human Services are supporting, and FEMA. We have brought state assets to include the National Guard Civil Support Team, which has a unique ability to do both modeling and air monitoring in the area. We are also working with the Illinois State, they're called a weapons of mass destruction, but they really do the same exact thing. They look at chemical releases and they make modeling and air monitoring recommendations. All of that information is really here to support the chief and his decision-making abilities. And then again, in addition, we're reaching back to our federal partners. We have also had a number of different requests from various states to be able to support us. Wisconsin and Texas have both reached out to us and said that they are willing to provide support to us should we need it. That assessment will be made by the chief if he needs additional resources, but I can tell you that the governor has been in contact with the mayor. We continue to lean forward. We have a saying that says, don't be late for need. So if there is an anticipated need, we are already looking at that. We're beginning to look at what the recovery part of this looks like also. And unless you have any questions for me, I will turn it over
What
to
is your air
public.
modeling, what are the results of your testing so far?
So far, we're still waiting. All the different models are being put together. The model itself actually shows that the area has been compressed. The chief, I think, spoke very clearly to that. As far as the air monitoring that's being done by the EPA and the other agencies and the groundwater modeling, all of that information is still being compiled at this time.
What are you looking for with those monitoring systems? Obviously, there were 8 teams surrounding the site. Are you looking for anything to change? Are you looking for certain levels?
Yes. So one of the key things that we were looking at, I think you heard the chief last night talk about the fact that we saw a dramatic change in temperature. That means that we had a ceiling level that went to 200 feet. So what we were looking was to see if all of the debris and the volatile organic compounds that were in those upper layers, how those might be floating to the ground. And of course, at this point, it's ongoing. I can't give you the exact monitoring details, but we're really looking to see what change that there might be. So that will lead us to if there's any indication to concerns with life safety.
What is your chief concern right now? Is it groundwater? Is it air quality?
So it's all of the above. So the first thing I would say is it is all about life safety. That is ensuring that the people that are in this area that have been displaced, that their safety is really our number one concern. So as we look at the air monitoring piece, again, that is one indicator for us to determine exactly how large this event is and do we have it scoped. To the chief's point, what we'll do with that information is once we get it in, it will help him determine how he can collapse that exclusion zone down. Regarding the water portion of this, obviously people's drinking water is very important. So we're monitoring to make sure that we don't have contaminants that are entering into that. And again, thinking down the road, what are the secondary and tertiary effects if we should see any impact to the water.
Can you kind of explain how this goes? So at last check, or the last measurement that you had, the air quality seemed fine, correct? But as we go along, you keep on measuring. So at last check it was fine, but who knows at this point what it could be. Is that correct assessment?
Correct. So what we do is monitoring on an ongoing basis. And what you want to look for is whenever we see changes to wind speed, direction, you heard me talk about the ceiling earlier and how it It dropped down this evening. So what that would be an indicator is what is actually falling to the ground and if there are any safety concerns related to that. So that'll be an ongoing process. The chief talked to you about the fact that, this is an ongoing event. We're not out of this yet. So we'll continue to monitor while they're doing active firefighting. We'll continue to do that afterwards. Again, in an abundance of caution, our number one priority is the safety of the public. All right, at this time I will turn it over to Public Health.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Bill Snyder. I'm a Vice President of Operations at the Lubrizol Corporation. We're the parent company for ChemTool. So I'd just like to make a few brief remarks. First of all, I want to extend our gratitude and thanks to Chief Wilson, all the local, state agencies, and the many first responders that are involved in the incident response. We're extremely grateful for their effort. We're also grateful for the fact that there were 70 ChemTool employees in the facility at the time the fire broke out, and they're all safe. Everyone got out safely, and we're grateful to those ChemTool employees and leaders who were able to effect the right kind of a response and make sure everybody got to safety. Also like to just apologize on behalf of the company to the community. It's obviously a very severe impact, and we apologize to the people that had to be evacuated, whose property and other things may have been impacted by the fire. We're here to support the community. We're going to do everything we can to do the right thing and support not only Chief Wilson and all the other resources in terms of addressing the fire and effecting the right emergency response, but also in supporting the community in the aftermath of the cleanup. For example, I can communicate that we've already partnered with local Red Cross, local food bank, making donations, supporting those in the community who are seeking services from those agencies. I think the other thing I can say is, the ChemTool business has operated on the site since 2008. Lubrizol's owned the company since 2012. We've operated safely all of those years. We've invested, tens of millions of dollars of capital, about half of which was related to safety improvements in the facility, and we're just really heartbroken by what happened and its impact on the community in particular. We have our own experts. We've partnered with a number of private contractors that we brought into the site and made phone calls yesterday morning in the early hours of the incident. So we made contact with U.S. Fire Pump that Chief Wilson made mention of. We have contractors that have expertise in spill prevention and spill cleanup and remediation, just to help assist with the other agency resources that are on site. We also contracted with some experts for air monitoring and water monitoring, just to supplement and cooperate and coordinate with what the agencies are already doing. And we're going to continue to cooperate fully with with the firefighting response, with the community support, and with the investigation that the authorities will lead after the fire. So I think the last thing I would say is, what we've talked about it in our press release, but what we manufacture on the site are finished greases, or and grease, if anybody knows about automobiles and industrial machines, you know what a grease is, and other industrial fluids and lubricants. We have our own expertise, and we're partnered with the agencies. We know all the materials that were in the building. We have expert toxicology that we're using to help consult with the agencies on air quality, on whether or not there's any potential harm. And based on everything we know about the materials that are present at the site and about what happens when they're involved in a fire, we don't foresee any concern over short or long-term health impacts as a result of the fire. Of course, there could be some normal short-term irritation that you might experience if you're exposed to smoke from a fire, but other than that, we don't foresee any short or long-term impacts. So we're really here to apologize, to support our employees, to support the communities, and just do everything we can to support Chief Wilson and all the other resources that are on site to effect the response.
Mr. Snyder,
So,
there's
yes.
a woman I interviewed at the Red Cross shelter. She's tired. She she's with her two cats who are very frightened. And one thing that she said this morning is that somebody didn't do their job and that's why they had the accident, because it always turns out that way. What could you say to Catherine Markley sitting in that Red Cross shelter right now with her scared cat?
Yeah, I can only empathize. I mean, and apologize. You know, we operate 60 chemical plants around the world. Lubrizol will be a 100-year-old company in the year 2028. You know, one of these is too many. We never want to have one of these. And we do absolutely everything we can to be good neighbors in the communities in which we operate. And I can only apologize and just reiterate, we're going to do everything we can to support her and all the other individuals that were impacted by the fire.
Are your experts indicating a cause to this yet?
We don't have any information. We're going to follow the lead of federal and local authorities on the investigation, and we're just really engaged in the event response at this time and making sure we're focused on that.
Just
Senator,
on
how do you
the
spell
70
your
employees,
name?
the workers, is there an update on what's going to happen? 70 workers obviously out of a job right now. Is there any?
Well, right now nobody's out of a job, right? Obviously the facility's a loss. You know, we're going to support our employees, full pay, full benefits. We also have counseling services for anybody that needs or wants those kind of services, free of charge, company provision that's available to employees. So we're going to continue to do that and support our employees as we work our way through this
Probably more
event.
than 70, right? How many people work at this plant?
In total at the plant, there's 200. There were 70 in the facility at the time, but there's approximately 200 employees at the facility.
What about the water suppressant system? Was there any failure there that you have been able to determine at this point?
It's just way too early to know any of that.
I have a viewer question. So there were published comments by chemtool workers stating that Lubrizol instituted poor materials handling practices to save costs after buying the chemtool facility. Is that going to be investigated?
We'll investigate, you know, and cooperate with the investigation into the potential causes of the accident. What I can tell you is, you know, we have invested tens of millions in that facility since we purchased it in 2012. Much of that was around material handling, you know, warehouse racking, organization, cleanliness of the facility. So, you know, I can't address the specific allegations, but I can tell you, you know, we've, I think from our perspective, done in fact the opposite of that since we purchased the business.
Can you say and spell your first and last name for us?
Sure. Bill Snyder, Snyder. Yeah, thanks. Okay, thanks very much.
Dr. Martell?
Good morning, I'm Dr. Sandra Martell and I'm the Public Health Administrator for Winnebago County. And again, I want to thank all of the response partners. I mean, I think, again, life safety has been their ultimate goal, and I think even in a public health response, that's always the primary response that we need, is to get individuals safe. And so, you know, just to reiterate why the 1 mile, even with the air quality, is because we are exercising extreme caution. Again, because weather patterns change, and you heard about the inversion layers, and again, we want to make sure before we return people to residences that we are able to safely return them and that we can clearly identify what the air quality is for that. And then the 3 mile radius for the masking is really to protect the respiratory systems. Yesterday as I drove, you know, out of the area, I saw people kind of doing observations without masks on as if it's a kind of a spectacle, and I want to say protect your lungs. We have just come through a pandemic and many of us have had to wear masks and protect ourselves. This is the way that we can do it. And I know it's another little bit longer for, you know, within that 3 mile radius, but it's extremely important. And limit your exposure. I mean, I heard the question about pets, and we want to limit the exposure. We know that if you're outside the evacuation zone or within 3 miles, you can't, you know, you're not masking your pets, so you're going to let them out for as short a period of time as possible. And recognizing that we are all learning more as we go through the day, as we go through the time, as we look at the patterns. We also know the community has lots of questions as individual residents. So similar to the COVID-19 hotline, we are establishing a hotline for calls related to the chem fire. So residents can call about questions about waste, debris, you know, concerns they may have about their health. And I'm going to give you that number. It's area code 815-972-7300. Again, 815-972-7300. 7300. We also will have an email address that is responsive at this point. It's Rockton Chemfire, Rockton Chemfire at WCHD.org. So ROCKTONCHEM fire at WCHD.org. And we will be responding to emails. We've also set up a web page so people can put links in at this time. We recognize that many of the questions that people have, we will not have immediate responses to. So we intend to develop frequently asked questions and list of the responses throughout the day. If there's an immediate need, if someone needs help with shelter, if the individual at the shelter needs to find some more permanent housing and we're looking for a way to get them, or if they have pets. We've heard people, we always tell people to evacuate with your pets. Our shelters are pet enabled and pet friendly because we know people need to bring their animals with them. And again, we recognize the tremendous impact this has had on our community. You heard about the protection we are taking and around groundwater. Unlike many communities around the Lake Michigan area, we rely on our groundwater, including the Rock River and our aquifers. So we are doing everything we can to both suppress the fire, protect our air quality, and protect our water quality for the long haul. So again, we wanted to make sure that the community knew we are here to respond to your questions. We understand that many want to know, when can I go back? What's happening? What should I expect? What's the next step? How do I dispose of garbage that's coming in my yard? We reiterate, we ask that you avoid touching some of this material. While at this point, it's not necessarily, we don't know what the material is. It could be packing material. It could be, bits and pieces of drums and things like that. It's safer to not touch the material, rake it up, use a shovel, put on gloves, put it in garbage that's separated, and we will then advise you how to dispose of that waste. But again, the precautionary steps that we can all do to support our community. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the public health perspective.
Do you know how many people stayed at the Rockton Middle School?
The confirmed number was 10, I think, as of last evening.
Thank you.
Is it going to be open for as long as needed?
The shelters are typically open for as long as needed, and so individuals may choose to shelter with family members. They may choose to go out, and we're hoping to return people safely as soon as possible.
Dr. Martell, is that the only shelter set up, or there was talk of potentially some other shelters being established?
The shelter capacity at that site is for 60, and at this point with the number 10, we are not anticipating needing a second shelter at this time.
If there are people in that 1 mile radius zone, are they able to return to their home to pick up belongings and then find an alternative place to stay?
Right now, we've been working to keep them out of, again, we're calling it a hot zone for a reason, because we don't know how safe it is to return. We dealt with individuals who needed medications last night. We take care of that within the shelter itself, recognizing that this is very disruptive. And we're hoping as the day goes on and the monitoring information comes back in a positive way, that we can return people back for either short periods of time and or permanently.
And
Thank you.
Chief, to you,
Thank
11
you.
o'clock, you anticipate the U.S. fire pumpers to begin applying foam, or by putting in the barricades in the river?
They're putting the barricades in the river right now, Andy, as we talk. So as soon as that's confirmed, then again, the suppression operation is going to continue.
And you have no timeline for how, is that a day? Is that?
I can't speculate on a timeline, so we'll just see how successful fire suppression operations are throughout the day. And again, like I said, as soon as we know something, we're definitely going to let the media and the community know as well.
Will the suppression process help in determining any kind of cause? Like, will that be able to subside?
No, I think once we get a good handle and get the fire suppressed, then we'll go into what's called the investigative mode. That's going to be later on, probably tomorrow or even the next day. So, like I said, this is an ongoing situation, and it's going to take some time for us to figure out what the actual cause of the fire was.
Chief, how was yesterday for you as a fire chief?
Right now I'm mentally exhausted, so I think you can understand that. But listen, I've had so much support, and not only from my crews here at the Rockton Fire District, but our surrounding fire protection agencies throughout the state. and throughout the community have been very, very helpful. So.
Chief, what does that mean to have that kind of support from the state of Illinois, from Wisconsin, to see all of these fire departments coming out to help Road Department? How does that feel?
It feels it's overwhelming. It's great satisfaction to know that our brothers and sisters are there to protect one another, and it goes the same for law enforcement too. The law enforcement community and the fire service community, we share that partnership, and we're very appreciative.
Are there, maybe this is a question for Village President Peterson, are there being alternative plans being made for potentially altering the start of Old Settlers Days at this time?
At this time, no. I'll defer to the fire chief, as long as it's safe.
Yeah. So like Mayor Peterson says, we're going to continue our efforts. We'll monitor everything as we go throughout the day. We'll give you a little bit more information later on throughout the day as the progress of the fire situation. And as far as Old Settlers Days concerned, beginning Thursday, it's still being planned. However, it could change. So right now things are kind of up in the air. But as the mayor said, for right now, it's still a go.
Number one concern is safety
right.
for people.
Any other questions?
I know residents have been making sure they conserve water in the area. How do you feel about your water supply right now?
Our water supply is actually very good because U.S. Fire Pumps actually brought in a large fire pump that they're actually putting into the river that they're actually going to use to suppress the fire. They have a 12-inch portable water main that was already laid out. It's all set up and ready to go. So as soon as we get the go-ahead from the EPA that all the protection measures for the river have been taken care of, then we'll go ahead and start suppression again. If no other questions, I would like to end the press conference at this time. So thank you folks for coming out. Again, this is a pretty serious situation, and we want to make sure that we continue not only firefighter protection and safety, but the safety of our community as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that wraps things up. Fire. And we got a lot of information. Looks like a mandatory Louisiana will begin suppression of the fire with foam later on.